Hi and welcome to this next tutorial video by Beyond the Square. In this tutorial I'm going to show you how to do a popcorn stitch. It's very similar to a bobble stitch or a cluster stitch, and this is the method I use throughout my cowl. Wherever you see a popcorn stitch, this is the stitch that it asks you to do. So for a traditional popcorn stitch, you do a cluster of 5 stitches into one stitch. So I've done one there already. Do the next 4. 1, whoops, 2, get some more yarn, 3 and 4 for 5 in total. So there you go, 5 stitches in one stitch. Now what you would do is take out your hook, count the 5 stitches back, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Insert your hook from the wrong side, if I can get it in that way, and then put it back through the loop of your last stitch and slip stitch that through, so pull it through, and that creates your popcorn or your little cluster stitch. Now I know there are variations where you do a chain 1 before you move on to the next one. I'm not going to do that, and that's purely because it helps you keep the stitch count. It can be very confusing if you've got 2 stitches on the top where you're going to do your next row of stitches in. I did debate the idea, but I found it much easier myself just to have 1 stitch on the top, so we're not going to be doing that. And then what you would do is, if you've got a popcorn stitch right in the next stitch, you would do it again. So the other technique that I need to show you is, because I'm going to be working popcorn stitches in rows, we need to show you how to do a reverse popcorn to make sure that all the popcorns are facing the right way. Some pieces of crochet work that call for popcorn stitches might tell you to do a row of single crochet in between, so that you're crocheting all in the same direction, but I didn't want my squares to get, or my rectangles even, to get too big. That I thought they were big enough as they are, and that can cause just additional size that I didn't want, and I didn't want to overcomplicate things, and this was the easiest way that I found to do it. I'm not sure if it's a new technique. I've never seen anybody else do it, so please let me know if you know that this is done in any other cowl or any other piece of work. I'll be very interested to see. So now I've finished that row off, and we're now on the reverse. As you can see, I've only got 1 stitch in the top above that popcorn, so the stitch count will stay the same on each row. So now what I need to do is, if I want to do another popcorn facing that way, I'll just do 1 double crochet in there. Right, so I would do 5 double crochets in this stitch. Just get some more yarn. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So there you go, there's your 5 in one stitch. And what you would do is, to make sure your popcorn is facing the same way, is you would need, instead of going in this way into the 5th stitch, you need to go into the reverse, so into the back of the stitch, and then slip stitch through with the last loop of the 5th stitch, and that way your popcorns are facing the same way. There we go. I'll just turn it around so you can have a look. There we go. So it's easy to make a mistake and put it through the wrong way, but you'll soon realise, and when I was doing my squares I had to frog quite a lot because I'd realised halfway through that I had a bubble pointing through the wrong way. You can potentially push them through if you do it, but it is quite fiddly and doesn't quite give you the same look. Yeah, it doesn't quite give you the same look. They're sort of a little bit puckered and a little bit bunched together, so I find it easier to just frog it and take it out, but that's up to you. It depends how tight you crochet. Again, with the single stitch, it doesn't affect your stitch count, and you can just carry on working it through. The squares that have bobbles in on my cow do have a lot of them, so if you're not used to doing this, maybe give it a little go in a little swatch like this so you can get the hang of it first. But other than that, I think it's quite an easy, simple stitch. Just one point to take note is that it will pull your square out. So as you can see here, even though I've got the same amount of stitches, the edges are quite slanted. So if I lay it down flat, you can see that it sort of points out that way and points out that way already with only 2. So just be wary of that with your tension of the other stitches, and maybe leave them a little bit looser so that it's easier to keep it straight. Or you could have always, like I do, just block it afterwards, and it should pull out and be fine and be nice and straight. Well, I hope this helps with the cow. Any questions, please leave comments below or comment on the blog, or of course catch us on Facebook. I'll try and answer as best I can, and I hope this helps.